Зараз хочу надати, I would like to introduce, everybody knows Alison who is a writer and translator and very close friend of Vera. Please,
Well, I prepared something and I've decided just to make up something completely different. I'm going to invoke Vera, which means that you can expect the unexpected. I know exactly where I was when I first met Vera Rich. It was the old New Year, in the Orthodox tradition. It was 1996, and I was in the embassy of Belarus in London in the days when they still had 1 or 2 human beings working there. I went there, and it was in the aftermath of a big incident that really impacted on my life, which is the thread that will run through everything I'm going to say, because Vera was very key in all of this. My colleagues had been killed in Belarus, and little did I know I was in the throes of post-traumatic stress disorder. I had Belarusian government trying to pressurize me, and I had the Scots on the other hand trying to pressurize me. All had a different version of the truth. And so I was still up in Aberdeen, and I was still sort of more or less clinging to some of my marbles. So I'm there in the Belarus embassy, and it was really lovely. There was dancing, there was polka, I'm dancing the polka right around the front room in the embassy. And the ambassador came up to me and said, "There is someone you have to meet." And I looked, and it was honestly as if the crowd parted. And there, whirling towards me, skipping with little dancing pumps on, in a black dress that would have been, it had seen better days in the 1950s. It's probably her mother's. It was a black cocktail dress, and it had sparkles in it. And that was Vera Rich. And I felt this sensation of being pinned against the wall with a force of just intellect, and she decided she was going to basically adopt me as her niece, and I was blah, 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 blah. And I don't remember a great, apart from, wow, it was one of those amazing parties. And she sang to me, and I know what she sang. Looking at this, just speak amongst yourselves for a bit. It's Vera again. She had all this prepared, right? See if anyone recognises what she sang. Shall I try and do the tune? Oh, yeah, why not? Yeah, she pinned me more or less against the wall. She was right up like this, because it was terribly full of it. She was very hurried. It went, "Venus, new risen, above us appearing, brings with her bright shining memories of love. Do you recall when we met for the first time? Venus, new risen above. From that time forth evermore skyward gazing, seeking that planet I'd scan heaven o'er. Within me a deep silent love for you blazing. From that time forth evermore." And I thought, who is this woman? And that was, of course, Bogdanovich. That was, of course, and I'm no way as good a singer as Vera was, but I need to. I have a very. I record voices and sounds in my mind, so I can actually conjure up the way she spoke and all of that. Now, romance became key when I found myself in Belarus as the guest of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is still the mid-1990s. And I arrived, and I was with minders. But I knew that Vera was in town. Vera was in town, and it was going to be her 60th birthday event at the Bogdanovich Museum in the old town of Minsk. And I was determined to get there, so I had to give my minders the slip, which I did. And I got there. Now, at this point, I was still working in Aberdeen, and I didn't know how important she was in Belarus and subsequently in Ukraine. All I was conscious of, I got there just as about it was starting, and there were hundreds of people arriving, all of them with flowers. Not almond flowers, flowers, kwiatki. And there she was, I got this photograph at home, a tiny figure right at the back. She didn't know I was there. She had a young bard singing to her that she was very taken with. Mm-hmm. And she sang it. She sang the Bogdanovich romance to that same piece of music. She sang her English translation, and spontaneously the Belarusian audience sang it back to her in Belarusian. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so key, the music that she had in her translations, the way you can transfer that from one language to the other, set to music. And this is something beyond translation. This is something very, very different. So that's when I realized that, gosh, she really is revered. She's revered in those countries, and quite rightly so. Now, things were going to go somewhat pear-shaped for myself. I wound up in London. I had a complete breakdown by this time, and I was homeless. I was homeless in London. I concentrated on being homeless in the posh areas, so I was actually Kensington and Chelsea homeless. My park bench was in Holland Park, but anyway. My constant at that time was Vera Rich, was my friendship with Vera. She understood what I was going through, and she told Hilary Shears, well, Alison will get well, and our role is to be there for her when she does. So she was always there, and she discovered that a key to my survival was humour. So she got me out of taking myself too seriously. So when I was well enough, I would take part in the performances by the Manifold Voices. And I've got one or two of them here. I mean, she did all kinds of things. I mean, just absolutely without being asked. I found one here. This is one of her impromptu ones. A buxom young lady from Finchley exclaimed, "How my girdle does pinch me." So she sought a good diet, resolving to try it, and her waistline decreased inch by inchly. She had me fanwy in far Aberystwyth, used a lipstick no man should be kissed with. Its indelible smear every morning made clear whom last night she'd walked in the mist. She told me she had a better idea than having therapy. All of that therapy, she said, Valium, schmalium, what for did God invent vodka? Yes. And she was, and her views on therapy, she made very much known. Psychobabble. When it seems fate's out to get you, and 1,000 ills beset you, and your joie de vivre has hit a slump, give all facile consolation a two-finger salutation. Tell sweetness and light to take a jump. When they tell you you're obsessive, introspective, and depressive, and of mental health you show no trace, tell them their psychologizing needs a radical revising. Kick the bastards in their tenderest place. Let your mind be marked no entry to all therapeutic gentry. Send them on their way with gesture rude. For their interactive babble simply is a game of Scrabble, where each tile's a flaccid platitude. So, if one day when you're out walking you can sense a stranger stalking, then, my friend, remember, if you please, this need not be a delusion. Life has proved beyond confusion. Even paranoids have have enemies. How could I remain depressed with a friend like that? But more importantly, she understood that I had talents and abilities that had been lost when I became ill. I had a sensation of being cryogenically suspended away from anything positive about myself. I mean, you know, I slept in a car park at one point, one of the, the lowest points. But she gradually helped me find my voice. So a key thing with Vera is helping people find their voice, whether it's a nation, whether it's a particular community, whether it's an individual. She would help that person, those people, to find their voices. Again, that's way more than being a translator. It's a different thing altogether. I would go as far as to say I don't think I'd be here right now if it weren't for Vera. Anyway, so more of this. This is basically my blurb, my publicity for. We're going to be doing more of this acting things on the 9th. So do come along. It's going to be quite different to today's event. So I'm going to leave everybody with this next poem. I take very seriously the message in this one. She wrote it on a journey. She was going from Warsaw. It was the late 80s, early 90s. And she wrote this most beautiful thing. And she told me her mother about both of their devotion to independence in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. Her mother had said, "I saw the buggers in, I'll see the buggers out," which she did, of course, when those countries regained their independence in the early 1990s. And she wrote this on the journey back because finally it was coming true. She saw those countries get their freedom, all those countries that she was banned from, basically. This is prologue. Be swift, my friends, be swift. When storm clouds thin and sun fire floods the rift, when the first green pierces the winter drift, eager to grasp the future's smallest gift, be swift. Be slow, my friends, be slow. Be not impetuous at letting go the good heart forged through the long years of woe, to voyage uncharted upon history's flow. Be slow. Be kind, my friends, be kind. Gentle to bruised soul and bewildered mind, to ears for decades deaf, to eyes long blind. Let the old enmities be left behind. Be kind. Beware, my friends, beware, when would-be allies come to speak you fair. Sift word and deed as ever with due care. A late frost often blasts the April air. Beware. Be free, my friends, be free. Open to all men's thoughts in charity, not only on the day of Jubilee, when all is hope, joy, and new liberty, but when work weariness brings apathy, boredom, despair, and petty rivalry, then all things shall be added unto ye. Be free. Warsaw, Berlin, Moscow, Kiev, Minsk, Vilnius, 1990 to 1991. So, standing here, I would like to just express my thanks to Vera for helping me find my voice and to giving voice to so many others, particularly the writers of Belarus and Ukraine. Żyje Belarus! Żyje! Slava Ukraini!